Welcome to another episode of the Online Prosperity Experience podcast. You're about to hear your host, Prosper Taravinga's powerful digital marketing strategies and actionable tactics that you can use right now. Prosper has helped more than 50,000 people from over 10 countries to create meaningful businesses that are profitable and enjoyable. Listen to this podcast so that you too can build your own business with less stress and overwhelm. Let's get started.
Why personal development is crucial for coaches, consultants, and small business owners, just so that you do not want to return to the safety of a 9-to-5 job with your tail tucked between your legs if you can't bring in new clients. I can admit, growing our own business is tough. You're cold calling potential clients and having them hang up in your face, and you're probably sending out hundreds of emails each and every day without anybody just reaching out to you saying, hey, thanks for the information, but maybe we're not ready now. And you're probably wasting thousands of dollars on ad spend without even generating any qualified leads. And sometimes you just feel like no one actually wants to buy what you're selling, and when you actually rely on your business to maybe pay rent and put food on the table, it can actually put an enormous strain on your emotions, and you're terrified to keep following your dreams, and you're afraid that if you give up, then obviously all your neighbors and your uncle that told you would never amount to anything would win. And, you start contemplating the return to a safe 9-to-5 job with your tail tucked between your legs if you can't actually bring clients. And I don't know what time you're listening to this podcast, but I think at the time I'm presenting this, we are 2.5 years into what was an epic pandemic. Maybe you guys have forgotten about it, the COVID-19. All right. We look back at our lives and see that some of the practices that we adopted during these lockdowns, have already become ingrained in our lifestyles, and they've reshaped our long-standing views on how work and leisure is going to be moving forward. Okay. While we were in lockdown, there was daily sourdough baking on Zoom or birthday parties on Zoom, and maybe even parties and boozing. It might have lost its quarantine charm, at least from what I gather, but home office routines are just as permanent, and they're lingering as the smell of hand sanitizer. This is why you actually really need to have a lot of personal development in order for you to go through these times and actually create a business that's profitable and enjoyable. And you're probably thinking to yourself, the idea of personal development is all woo-woo. If I just put out ads out there, if I just put out content, people will beat a pathway to my door. But strangely enough, the idea of becoming a better person and being happier is actually seen by some as a silly activity or, nonsensical, so to speak. But in reality, we all want this. We resist it because we shy away from the actual personal responsibility and also the idea of our actual facing our demons and whatever internal junk. It kind of scares us and would rather not. So we just put it in the too hard basket, and we laugh at those that do it because maybe we know that they probably don't shave their legs or armpits, and then we just say, no, we don't want to be associated with that. But no matter what type of person you are, you will clearly benefit from working on yourself, because you can't do well if you do not feel well. So if you're working from home and all this information about the lockdowns is making you feel jaded, your personal development is the thing that will actually make you shine. Okay. And if you're a coach, consultant, or an entrepreneur in particular, you really need to devote a bit of time to better yourself, because if you want to be successful in your business or in any endeavor, you likely need to make some changes First of all, in your belief systems, as well as how you think and act. And if you, you look at most of the successful entrepreneurs of our time, it is really clear that personal development is a huge part of their life. And you might think it's a coincidence. I think not. Okay. So a lot of us have limiting beliefs. All right. Most of us are probably, you know, maybe let's start off with this. As an entrepreneur, marketing is just maybe one aspect of running a successful business. All right, you have to wake up every morning, you hire new staff, you balance books, you're driving growth, and a whole lot more. And it all feels like a balancing act where you're pulled in multiple different directions. If you have limiting beliefs in any of these places, you're gonna sell yourself short and you're not actually going to perform to your actual fullest. And this, at the end of the day, our real goal is to just help our clients. You want to spend as much time as possible changing people's lives, because if you're a coach, that's your ultimate goal. You know what I mean? You don't want to spend countless hours each day navigating the whole complex world of online marketing. And certainly you don't want to spend yet another minute on the phone having to beg people to hire your services. This will actually demoralize you. So if you bust through your limiting beliefs, you will definitely set your stage for everything that you do in life, okay? Because your beliefs and how you approach life and in general is basically going to be the thing that will make it or break it, for you during these hard times, okay? What we believe and what we think actually sets the stage for everything we do in life and will determine the course of our experience. So being a successful coach or entrepreneur, it actually requires you to adopt a set of beliefs that many people do not hold. Okay? Because if they did, then they'll be happier and living the lives that they truly want and won't even need the services that you are providing them. Okay? And everyone else out there is not living to their fullest. So if they did, then you as a coach wouldn't have work, and then you as a consultant wouldn't have businesses to consult on. So if you are not fortunate enough to grow up around people with a mindset directed towards success, your personal responsibility and abundance is going to be predicated on what you do and how you conduct yourself and how you actually bust through these limiting beliefs. You see, the funny story is I was actually born in Zimbabwe. And the reason why I'm really passionate about helping coaches and consultants, and especially small business owners grow their business is because I know what it's like to come from nothing. You see, I was born in a small town in Zimbabwe in Africa, and growing up, it was pretty tough for us. And I didn't have a lot of money, and we didn't even have a lot of hope that I would amount to anything. And, there was not even a lot of people that would look up to. So we had no role models to actually inspire me to expand on my horizons. But my life changed when a bright-eyed Australian teacher came to work at our school, and she taught me all about Australia and all the incredible opportunities that it had to offer. What she taught me was that if you can be, do, and have a happier existence if you just look beyond the limiting beliefs that you have surrounding you. So, if you look at my story, I wouldn't have thought that I would have amounted to anything just simply based on the environment that I was brought up around. Okay? So we can only adopt more empowering beliefs when we actually make a conscious effort to do so, and it actually requires a bit of self-examination and study to actually find the tools that will help us make this mental shift. Had I not met this mentor, had I not decided to make, the most of my time at school when she had left, then obviously guess what was going to happen? I was just going to, amount to whatever, was around me at that time, which, if you ask me, was not a great deal. Okay, so we live around all of these self-limiting beliefs. Maybe it could be something that you've just experienced during this pandemic, and you start noticing that, wait a minute, the people that I've been hanging around don't really want to do much. So you want to look out for networks and people that will actually help you be, do, and have a happier existence. And the more you network and you put yourself out there, the better it is for your clients, and the better it is actually for your business, because you actually now start expanding yourself, to places that you never thought you could, and you start reaching audiences and clients that you possibly wouldn't, had you not gone ahead and busted through those limiting beliefs. Okay, so when you change those limiting beliefs and self-sabotaging or blocking tendencies, you actually start bringing success towards yourself. Because the idea that we purposely do things to thwart our own success, it might seem ludicrous to you, but we actually sabotage our own success. Have you ever noticed that when somebody wins a lottery, they actually do their best to get rid of that money, because in their life they have always lived around people, and the consciousness around them as a person was a person who didn't have much abundance. So the fact that that money has come to them, it is actually very scary for them, because they're afraid they might lose the people that they had around them. So look at how maybe somebody comes to you with an opportunity to expand your growth or to partner with you, and you're like, nah, I don't think it's the right time, or I need to fix this. All of those things are blocking your success, and you might not even know that you're doing that to yourself. Okay, but this is not just the part of your mind that's doing this, because your brain is calling the shots just simply based on the information that you've given it. So if you start expanding your mind by reading and actually just showing up to people and experiences that will expand your mind, you too will have a business that's profitable and enjoyable. Okay, so all sorts of these weird things that I'm talking about that sabotage our professional success, such as maybe fear of added responsibility, or sometimes we're even afraid to take on some clients because we're afraid of the work that it brings, or we are afraid of failure, or we're afraid of criticism. And if you want to be more successful and more wealthier, let me tell you something. Feel the fear and do it anyway. All right. Most of the people that we know that are successful or wealthy people around us, they've just faced their fears and gone ahead and done whatever things that were facing them. So we, as people, we also have these habits that are blocking our success, and sometimes we're just lazy and we procrastinate and we don't even do anything to fix that problem. The goal is not about totally becoming this perfect coach or consultant or this perfect being, but it is for you to want to succeed as an entrepreneur. You are, likely going to have to have a concerted effort to actually work on areas on yourself that will stand in the way of the success that you seek. All right. And like I mentioned earlier on, we're just going through this whole pandemic, and most of the people are now starting to work remotely. You need to be able to manage stress effectively. Okay, we're working in front of our kids each and every day. We're working in front of our pets. We're working in front of our loved ones. So stress is going to be inevitable. All right, the work-life balance has been blurred. So like I said, stress is going to be inevitable as a coach or consultant, and you likely experience these high levels very often because you're dealing with so many people in such a confined space, environment, and space of time. So it could be stress from planning your business, running it once it starts, and maybe fearing whether or not you're going to succeed, in dealing with unexpected roadblocks and people that are experiencing life in totally different ways, because the world is jaded at the moment. All right, people are no longer optimistic as they used to be. So spending habits have actually changed, engagement levels have changed. People are in survival mode. So that could stress you as an entrepreneur or as a coach or consultant, and you're looking for ways of how you can actually circumvent that. That's why you need to make sure that your personal development is on point. Okay, stress can be very destructive to your business goals, and for something so destructive, you would think more, you'd think that a lot of us are going to make a more concerted effort to leave or relieve stress, and many of us don't. Okay, we wait until the thing has started showing up as a disease or some sort of ailment, and then we just fall down because of a heart attack just because we didn't manage it well. So we just don't complain about it and we let it overwhelm us, and half of the time we're usually the smartest person in the room, so we can't ask our kids how to solve certain problems. Guess what? You probably don't need to ask them. Maybe you just need to give them a cuddle. Half of the time when my kids show up on my door and they're knocking and they're just talking, and I start asking them questions, what do you want? What do you want me to do for you? What do you want me to put for you on TV? Some of the times they don't want any of that stuff that we're trying to give them so that they walk away. They probably just need a cuddle. And maybe the person who needed that cuddle was you more than anything else. So half of these things, just be mindful of what's happening around you, just so that you are not working yourself into oblivion. Without committing to stress management or any of those things, you could actually go through meditation. I have a pair of work headphones that I have. You have those noise cancellation headphones from Sony or whatever. I don't think those actually work. I use the work site headphones. Those things that actually cancel out the noise of a jackhammer. Those actually, high V's headphones. Yeah, I bought myself a pair of those. So I just sit in front of my computer and put those on, and I just quieten down and listen to my mind. That's how I meditate, and from then I really have a sense of alignment with what I'm doing, alignment with the work that I'm working on, and I do an exercise. Sometimes I do yoga or do deep breathing or just regular exercise. Lifting weights will actually alleviate stress, because you're now telling your brain that, hey, something is much more important than what we are running through our head right now. Because you can't do well if you're not feeling well. So for you to be able to maintain and achieve the state of mind necessary for you to actually run a successful business, you want to approach every single day stress-free, okay? Because stress, it actually skews with your perspective. It makes you feel a lot more negative. You become pessimistic about things. A client might actually call you with a few questions, and you might just brush them off just because you're not feeling well, and it actually makes you self-sabotage. So while you will certainly have your moments of not feeling great, it is actually important to do whatever you can to minimize them and actually reduce the intensity of stress when it arises. So are you actively working on your own personal development? Because at the end of the day, there are 3 questions that I usually ask myself that you can plan your life around, so that you always don't have to have maybe goals or resolutions. I've got these 3 questions. How do I want to be remembered? What matters the most at this particular moment? And what single brave decision do I need to make today? And you will notice that with all these questions, I'm going to dive into them a little bit more. With these questions, you actually set yourself up for success. Because let me tell you something. You might be a coach or consultant, and your role is to hold space for other people. But who is doing that for you? Who is the person who is actually listening to you and looking after your actual needs as a person? Because before you're a coach or consultant, you're a human. And most people want more from life than what they're actually getting at this present moment. Yes, we can get results for our clients, but what are we doing for our own selves in order for us to do and have, first of all, a happier existence, and then second of all, having a business that's profitable and enjoyable? And that's natural to feel, wait a minute, I need somebody to hold space for me. We all created, with appetites that long for a whole lot more. And the hard part is maybe taking that longing and actually turning it into reality. We are helping other people. We see our clients making money. We see our clients doing well. And yes, we are happy for them, but maybe it's not, happening to you at the very same time as well. because life often throws us curveballs, and we don't always have the control, over how things unfold. And we're just coming from the hardest time, like I mentioned earlier on with the COVID-19, and a lot of things have changed, just simply based on who we are as people. And what we do have control over is how we respond to those situations and how we actually get in front of them. All the outcomes that we experience in life are often maybe a direct result of the questions that we actually ask ourselves. Had I not asked myself, what am I learning from this teacher, would I be actually here? Remember the story I told you about the teacher who helped me realize that there's life beyond the cocoon that I was brought up in Africa. Had I not met my teacher there, I'll probably be in your imagination sitting on a zebra right now with a bone sticking through my nose and yodeling in some village in Africa. But I did not fall for that. So when you ask yourself the right questions, how do I want to be remembered? That's maybe a starting point. And for you to get in front of whatever life throws your way, and you plan your outcomes that you want to ask yourself, like I said, maybe a few questions each and every day, and then make the day unfold as you answering those questions. So let's start with the question that, how do you want to be remembered? Because in planning anything, the best place to begin is to start with the end in mind. How are you going to know that you have arrived? When you're going somewhere, you just don't jump into your car before you look up the address and you pin and then you key the GPS address, for where you're going. You don't put the address of where you are. So I'm asking you the question: what is the outcome that you actually want? How do you want your story to be told? Who do you want to become? Right. And how do you want the actual story to end? Or if somebody's going to write your biography or obituaries, what do you want them to say? How do you want people to think of you when you're gone? This is such a revolutionary question because it deserves your best thinking and the deepest reflection. You won't get where you really want to go by simply drifting and seeing where you're going to land. You're going to need to have clarity to know where your final destination would be. And all you do is just reverse engineer from where you are, and then you start orientating yourself in that direction. So yes, you might stumble upon a roadblock or a speed hump like COVID, but if you know what you want to be remembered for, and you know what your story is going to be, none of this will be in your way. It would actually just be how your GPS redirects you and tells you to maybe take a longer route and towards your destination. But along the way, you also want to ask yourself what actually matters the most to you. Now, it's possible you might or you've never given yourself permission to ask this question. You spend your time, tending to others, like I was saying earlier on, as coaches, we are holding space for our clients, etc., etc. But have you ever asked yourself what actually matters the most? For example, you probably know what's important to maybe your clients, your spouse, your family members, your kids, and everything else. And you certainly know what's important to, your team members and the people that you work with or your partners. But what's important to you? This is about your priorities and your values, and no one else can decide, these kind of things for you. You have to take ownership on them for yourself, and so that you can actually get the clarity on where to focus, especially when distractions come your way. We're living in one of the hardest times, and if you don't know what matters to you right now, you might just fall for anything if you don't stand for nothing. All right. So this is a time where everything just now starts feeling like you have to make a decision. It's either you're here or you're there. You're following the news or you're not. You're whatever it is. There's either this or that. There's no in between, and you need to determine what actually matters to you. What are you going to focus on? And when you get that focus going on for yourself, then you, my friend, will have a business that's profitable and enjoyable. And once you've done that, every single day is totally different from the last. Okay. If you've lived in Melbourne like I have in the last 2 years, you have to wake up and start noticing that every single day is different from the day before, or every month is no longer the same. We're living on a day-to-day basis because the rules are changing. People's temperaments and moods are changing. So you want to maybe check not only the weather when you walk out, because in Melbourne the weather changes 4 times a day, but the politics change 4 times a day, the rules change 4 times a day, the mandates change 4 times a day. So what single brave decision are you going to need to make today? Because it can feel a bit daunting to reach for something new, you know what I mean? Because you're working towards building your business, you're working towards something, you're building a person you've never become, because you are not the person you were 20 seconds ago. And another 20 seconds has passed, you're a different person already. And after 2 or 3 days, maybe your body has started shedding a few cells. Your right finger is totally not the one that you had when you were 6 years old. But you don't have to know all the steps of how everything is going to play out and have everything all lined up or your ducks in a row. Have you ever seen ducks and tried to put them in a row? That would never work out. There's always the ugly duckling that wants to be seen or that talks too much. And, it's just not going to work. All right. And in fact, trying to create an elaborate plan, especially these days, can lead to major procrastination, because you say, you know what, I'll do it when the lockdown is lifted. I'll do it when the pandemic ends. I'll do it when. And you only need to decide on one thing only, and how you're going to create, the next steps and the movement forward. So there's going to be a lot of confusion, and cutting through the confusion of life is definitely going to need for you to have pure clarity. And if you ask yourself these 3 questions, you now have for yourself a really powerful tool, because now you know how you want to be remembered, and anything else that doesn't fall along those lines, you're not going to do it. All right. You now know what matters the most to you, and you're not going to bother yourself trying to please people that you don't even care about, or people that don't even fall into your conscience. And when you know just one single brave thing that you need to do today, everything else pales to whatever you're going to achieve for yourself. So maybe that one thing is to just maybe read a little bit more, or just meditate, or connect more with your clients. Most of what is happening right now is a figment of our imagination. We never knew we would be where we are right now. During the pre-pandemic times, things like freelancing or being a coach or consultant was just a matter of choice. People actually opted, or if they felt for maybe greater flexibility, working from home. This was something that we never knew existed. So we should actually now start taking full control of what we have in our hands, because guess what? What's in it for people that we're working with? A lot of businesses now opt to work with consultants at a per project basis. So if you're not feeling well when a company calls you, then they're gonna go to the next person. So at the end of the day, as a coach consultant, we're always in either flood or famine, when it comes to money and business. So you may find yourself bouncing desperately between, periods of extreme work overload or occasional dry spells. Your own personal development is the thing that will make you go past these things, like Jesus walking on water, for lack of a better example. So for you to balance your workflow and to avoid, this burnout that's going to come, make it a habit to always look out, for your own personal development. Because if you don't do this, like I said earlier on, many people shy away from the idea of personal development because they think it's a woo-hoo subject. It's airy-fairy. But for you to become a better person and become healthier, happier, wealthier, and much more connected to where you're going to need to have personal development, and you need to have asked yourself the 3 questions that I talked about in this podcast. How do you want to be remembered? What matters the most to you right now? And what's the most single brave decision that you need to make today? I can't wait to see you in the limelight. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, let's continue the conversation in the Live Long Digital community. Become a Live Long Digital community member today. This community is for ambitious entrepreneurs and small business owners with the drive to take control of the future of their businesses and achieve huge success without stress and overwhelm. As you heard, Prosper can help you by teaching you marketing strategies that work. So look no further than the Live Long Digital community of entrepreneurs and highly successful business owners. Join our community today. Find us on www.community.livelongdigital.com.au. Network with other driven entrepreneurs and find the expert guidance you need to take your business to the next level. www.community.livelongdigital.com.au